Well, welcome everybody. We are Land Justice Futures. We are Brittany, Sarah, and Amy from the team here today. Um, Many of you are no strangers to us, and you probably know us through our webinars and workshops about land justice. We work with religious communities to incorporate the work and the call of land justice into the decisions that they and many of you make about the lands you love and steward. And from the core of that work and the foundation, the spiritual foundation that drives it, we have been working to prepare this bigger and broader offering to a larger circle of people here. And we're really excited to introduce that to you today. So with that, I will invite my wonderful co-founder, colleague, sister, Sarah, to set us up and share more.
Thanks, Brittany. As Brittany mentioned, you're here, or at least we hope you're here because you're interested in learning about mother law and Complicit No More, and this new Mother House initiative and starter series that we're launching in just 2 weeks this September. This is the last of our two.
Yeah.
Oop, oop. Sorry, we might mute you just to support everyone's listening. Yes, so today will be our last of 2 introduction events. Our team will be giving you a bit of a sneak peek of what's coming, the details of the starter series and who's involved, as well as, really importantly, sharing where this initiative is coming from and how it came to be a part of our work. So Mother House, this new initiative, is a space where we're going to be deepening in the work of removing our consent, our material, spiritual, psychological consent from the colonial systems of domination and extraction that lie within us and exist all around us. And it's also going to be a place where we learn about and practice realigning with something else, realigning with mother law traditions. And we'll get to that in a second. This Mother House initiative is also going to be a place where we build community, a broader community, and a movement to be complicit no more in the culture that is destroying life, and remember how to put life back at the center of all we do. So this upcoming starter series this September will be the foundational course for this new initiative, which will continue to grow and evolve. Right off the start, I want to say that this initiative is not something that we at Land Justice Futures have come up with on our own. In fact, this initiative is coming out of the work and lives of generations of women and has directly emerged from and through 2 women pictured here who we work with. Mama Bear Louise Hearn, who is the condoled clan mother of Mohawk Nation, Bear Clan, and Michelle Shenandoah, who's the founder of Rematriation. And you'll hear more about them and the story of how this starter series became real. So again, this came through them and was encouraged through our advisors. You might even say that we were organized into this body of work by our Black and Indigenous partners, as well as by Spirit. That feels really, really true. So that's a little bit of a preamble. So to get into where this work comes from, this new initiative, we'll be sharing this story for about 20 minutes or so with some fun visual aids and a pause or two to reflect. So I'd love to invite you to get comfortable and let yourself be in a receptive mode for story time. To begin our version of this story, there are many versions, but our version, we'll need to go all the way back to the 1400s. There are a lot of places to start any story, and given who we are and who we work with and the work we do, we're going to start in 1400s Europe. Okay, so as we were talking about, during the 14th and 15th centuries, Europe was in the midst of a massive societal transformation. Common people had long been living off of common land, so men and women doing various kinds of labor to meet their needs, making and selling goods at market, selling beer, brewing beer, subsistence farming. And while many peasants lived within a feudal system, work existed mostly outside of wage labor. In the 1400s, kings, nobles, and clergy sought to consolidate and claim these large swaths of common land. So the land that people used for farming, grazing, hunting, collecting medicines, and all sorts of community and social use. And this campaign pushed everyday people off of the land and deprived them of the means to care for their needs, forcing them to sell their labor for money in a new wage labor economy. So this is the beginning of the wage labor economy. This campaign to enclose land into private property was very violent, and there was a lot of resistance. Kings and nobles, along with the church, crushed this resistance, including through the terror campaign known as the witch hunts, where they attacked women who were both the linchpins to their communities and the poor outcasts. They labeled these women demonic, troubled, and insane. Not long after these enclosures, there was another land and labor grab afoot. In the 1400s, or the late 1400s, I should say, during Europe's so-called Age of Exploration, the Pope in Rome wrote a set of decrees which later became legal doctrine, called the Doctrine of Discovery. Again, for sisters who've been with us for a long time, or folks who've been part of our programming for a few years, some of this is going to be very familiar for you, but because this is a foundational introduction, we gotta go over it again. So again, this is a document that later became part of a legal doctrine called the Doctrine of Discovery. These letters granted European princes the right to discover and claim any land that wasn't already governed by a Christian prince, and compelled Christians to, quote, invade, search out, capture, and vanquish and subdue all non-Christians, and take their lands and belongings, and reduce them to perpetual slavery. It made this claim on the ludicrous basis that Christians of Europe were superior to all other peoples, and that all non-Christians were less than. So that image of the boat coming across the sea is a very kind of misleading image of what that project actually was, which was extremely violent. So these letters from the Pope served as the legal, political, moral, and religious justification for the colonization of the entire planet, the theft and control of indigenous lands, and the enslavement of indigenous Africans. All done for the enrichment of the ruling European class and later the European American class, ruling class. Also important context to note is that this violence against non-Christians was very much rooted in the hatred of Jews and Muslims. This is the exact time that the church and state expelled Jews and Muslims from Spain, as well as waged crusades to try to recapture Jerusalem for Christian control. So this document, it might look like it's gathering dust, but these papal bulls did not just compel things to happen and then become irrelevant. The Doctrine of Discovery became a foundational piece of US property law and an active legal doctrine that defines our relationship to land to this day. In 1823, the Supreme Court encoded that logic of white Christian supremacy into US law, naming that discovery is the foundation of title and overlooks all rights held by the natives. This legal ruling was reaffirmed as recently as 2005 by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose first citation in that ruling is the Papal Bulls. So, discovery, quote, quote, discovery by European white Christians is the foundation of US sovereignty and private property in the US. This is how the US government appropriated, through fabricated legal technicalities and structures, indigenous land, and then sold it to settlers throughout the early republic, which those stolen lands then passed from generation to generation. All of this based on a legal fiction, which essentially says European Christians deserve to take things because they are superior and favored by God. And this is true because we, the European Christians, say so. So, as we can tell on its face, this is absolutely ludicrous and farcical. And this is what is serving as real, active legal doctrine. So, again, the doctrine of discovery is a primary tool and seedbed for the diseased ideology, legal system, and culture all around us of patriarchy, of white and Christian supremacy, and of capitalism. And, this is all a big bummer, but don't worry, we'll get into a different kind of law, which we can orient towards in a moment. So, just to kind of break it down, to summarize, our dominant way of life, what Clarissa Pinkola Estes calls the overculture, is built off of 4 building blocks, which enrich the majority white ruling class. First, the enclosure and commodification of land, and indeed all of creation, as private property. Second, the subjugation of women and women's labor. Third, the theft of indigenous land. And fourth, the theft of Black lives, knowledge, and labor through enslavement, which then, as we know, evolved into other kinds of systemic racism and economic exploitation, which of course we see now through the exploitation of the incarcerated, migrant labor, and workers of the global South. And this overculture was created through and with religious systems that abused patriarchal power and moved further and further away from their true source of divine instruction. And I think this is something that, takes a second to land, but to think about these 4 things being the building blocks of our overculture and to have happened through the way that people's relationship to God and even their idea of God was used and abused and distorted, is something that I find really hard to take in and metabolize. But it's something that I know that we need to face. So I'm just going to take a moment to breathe with that. Yeah, enclosure and commodification of land, subjugation of women, theft of indigenous land, and theft of lives and labor. Create a modern colonial capitalist economy. So today, it's our work to live in ways that don't depend on these 4 pillars, and instead live in ways that put life at the center of our decisions, our commitments, the way we live our lives. It's time to address the consequences of this domination logic of these pillars. And as we'll get to, it's time for the mothers of the world, the grandmothers of the world, all those who have the nurturing impulse in them to support life, to call the house to order and to unite across race, class, religion, sexuality, nationality, and come together motivated by a deeper impulse towards life and, we believe, greater wholeness. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Sarah. I haven't been able to switch over, so we continue with the Lucky 99, and we will send the recording out to folks when we finish this. So Sarah just set a really big and important historical framework for where we are and some often invisible threads of why we are where we are. And so from there, we're going to fast forward to the 2020s, where we find ourselves in a massive global economy that's been built off of this story and these pillars that Sarah talked about. And inside of a series of crises and injustices that have resulted. Around us, institutions are crumbling, oceans are rising, and an elite few continue to amass power through their own distorted story of how we got here. Meanwhile, in these 20 aughts, starting in 2016 or so, a group of youngish activists and organizers in our 20s and 30s of various or complicated or no relationship to religion started hanging out with a bunch of Catholic sisters, most of whom were in their 70s and 80s. We found them because we were looking for models of living otherwise. And we came to the surprising conclusion that there's a lot that we share. We share with sisters, and sisters share with us an interest in communal life, an interest and a desire for lifelong spiritual formation with integrity and deep roots, the desire for lifelong vocations of justice work, and for community and the support infrastructure that can enable that kind of life. That space of encounter, which many of you have known as Nuns and Nuns, created a lot of new relationships, and out of those new relationships, new possibilities. During the pandemic, we set out with a new set of questions, trying to understand what this moment was asking of us. We brought those questions to our sisters, to movement partners working on racial and ecological justice, to our peers, to our elders. And what came back to us was this work, organizing religious communities around land justice. And that is how Land Justice Futures was born from and spun out of the Nuns and Nuns movement. At Land Justice Futures, we describe land justice as centering racial and ecological justice and healing in decisions that we make about how land is used, loved, and governed by people. But to be clear, this work runs so much deeper than just shifting the name on a deed or replacing historical wrongs with rights in sort of a one-by-one transactional way. At its core, the work of land justice is a multi-directional journey of healing, of transformation, and of reclaiming our authority in service of life. And I'm going to share just a few glimmers of what I'm trying to convey through some stories. One glimmer of this kind of transformation was during our very first land justice workshop that we gave in Michigan with the Adrian Dominican sisters. I don't know if there's any of you on the call. Hello. And we had a guest speaker with us, a Potawatomi woman who came to speak about land justice and the work of reclaiming Potawatomi cultural traditions. And she really opened up about, one, how emotionally difficult it was to enter the grounds of a convent, coming from a family that went to boarding schools, to Catholic boarding schools, and how surprising and healing it was to find Catholic sisters showing up to do this work together with her. So there was this really deep and unexpected kinship. And she's standing in front of this room full of sisters, and she looks out at them and says, I come from a matriarchal culture, and I know a matriarch when I see one. And I'm in a room full of matriarchs because it takes one to know one. Another glimmer is a story with Pat McCabe. You may recognize her name. She's been on a lot of different webinars and workshops with us and is one of our earliest advisors. And Pat has shared stories of bringing Indigenous women and European descended women to the sites of those witch burnings in Europe. She talked about performing healing ceremony there because it was there where it was because those women were harmed and taken away from the land that their sons and grandsons would be able to cross the ocean in later generations and hurt her people. And when we were in the very first national gathering, land justice gathering with our focus communities last year, Pat saw it all coming and she looked around the room of those focus community members and those sisters and said, I see a new, larger grandmother's council being formed. And I'm just going to take a second to notice that almost all the characters in this story that you've heard about have one big thing in common. They are all women. everywhere we look in the land justice movement, this work is often led by women. Indigenous women, Black women, white women, Catholic sisters, whether it's doing land back real estate, recreating villages, forging food sovereignty neighborhood by neighborhood, or creating new kinds of law to support this kind of work, it's the women who are leading. And so you can see why at this point in the story, there's a new word that's emerging in this field of land justice. It's a shift from the word repatriation to the feminine word rematriation when talking about land justice. We're starting to gravitate toward this cultural shift. And when we get to know Michelle Shenandoah, who leads an organization of the same name, Rematriation, that works to restore Haudenosaunee lifeways. And Michelle and her elder, who's a Mohawk clan mother, her name is Louise Hearn, and she's known by many as Mama Bear. They came to a definition of rematriation, not just as the return of land from one group to another, but the all-encompassing return of the sacred to the mother. And Michelle would know something about this because she's the granddaughter of the women who were fighting the US government for their land for over 100 years. That 2005 case that Sarah talked about that reaffirmed the doctrine of discovery with Ruth Bader Ginsburg's signature, that was a case that denied the Oneida people of their lands specifically. That case was about Oneida land, and it's a part of Michelle's family story. And this, there's a picture here of her addressing Pope Francis about the harm of Indian residential schools, which is another big part of her story. So for some time, Michelle has been incubating this dream of women proclaiming themselves complicit no more, of women across lineages who choose to disentangle ourselves from this code of domination that we've inherited for the sake of liberation for everybody. And when she says complicit no more, she's riffing off of a 2012 campaign you may remember as Idle No More. That was an Indigenous women-led movement for the protection of Indigenous rights and the protection of land, water, and sky that originated in what we know as Canada. And so just like they did through Idle No More, Indigenous women have long been putting out the call to dismantle colonialism in ourselves and in the world. And what Michelle is saying is it's a time for a broader response. We all must be complicit no more. And we need a movement that can reorganize each of us across all our lineages around something that is inspired by the authority of women and life givers, the authority to protect and nurture life. And we're going to talk about that more. And they are going to speak to it first from their own Haudenosaunee context. And when I say this word Haudenosaunee, we need to pause and recognize who the Haudenosaunee Confederacy is. Made up of the Oneida, Onondaga, Mohawk, Seneca, Cayuga, and Tuscarora nations, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, standing for over 1,000 years, is the oldest continuous democracy in the world. Its constitution, known as the Great Law of Peace, deeply influenced the Founding Fathers' design of US democracy, and 100 years later served as the inspiration for the white women's suffrage movement. And so this lineage is what we're talking about. This Haudenosaunee community is the lineage we're talking about and what sparked this guiding invitation from Michelle and Mama Bear. So to give a couple more glimmers of this story, we meet with Michelle again in 2023. And this time it's at a conference on the doctrine of discovery in Syracuse, New York, Oneida homeland. And this time we've all brought our people with us. So Michelle is with Mama Bear and a group of Indigenous women lawyers and leaders. And we're bringing with us women lawyers from the land justice community, including members of religious communities. We go to a 3-day long law school conference style lectures. And after that, our delegation gathers in a big house on a lake for 3 days in a sort of anti-conference. We share meals, we have conversations in a circle, we share stories and ceremony and prayer. We focus on presence rather than presentations. You can imagine a Catholic nun, lawyer, and a Mohawk clan mother sitting down and sparking an unlikely friendship. And the thing that we focus on is, rather than delving into how we fight the doctrine in the courts, we begin to dream about a system of law that operates entirely outside of the grasp of this domination code. So it's at this gathering, Mama Bear, Beverly Jacobs, Michelle, and others begin Haudenosaunee teachings on what they call mother law. Through stories, wampum belts, principles, protocols, treaties, ways of being, creation stories, there's a transition through all of this and the energy as well. The authority of the mother that stems from Mother Earth and is embodied in these women and elders. And we felt it then. Mother law is an incontrovertible authority to protect and nourish life, to demand that life be centered in all that we do. In the Haudenosaunee context, it's a specific cultural, social, and legal tradition of matrilineal authority. With life bearers placed in the center of society, that governance of the Haudenosaunee Great Law of Peace stems from the inherent authority and autonomy of women. Clan mothers bear the sole authority to raise, select, and recall male leaders, and they are the sovereign decision makers regarding the use and stewardship of land, as well as the authorization of war. On a spiritual level, mother law is the law beneath the law, in which an unbroken lineage of women sustain kinship, belonging, and authority on behalf of all life. Mama Bear's invitation to us gathered here is to let this concept be a springboard for each of our own remembering, for each of us to reclaim our authority and the mother law that lives within the seeds of all cultures and lineages, however covered up it may be, to put life at the center of all we do, to start living toward right relationship now. So this is a really seismic gathering for our team, this work of mother law. And it's an aha moment, a glimpse into the deeper work, a core organizing principle for the why behind land justice. Because it's not enough to just dismantle this doctrine of discovery. We need to be organizing toward its alternative. It's not enough to just do land justice out of guilt or shame. We must do it from a place of deep spiritual authority and for the sake of our own transformation and that of the world. Mother law calls us into healing, into our attunement with life, and into our power. So at this gathering that we were at, a mandate is given. We will do this work and we will do it together. We will create a campaign to be complicit no more, and we will spark a movement for joining in mother law.
Thank you, Brittany. So that was in December, last December. And since then, this work with mother law, as well as the land justice work we've been doing with our focus communities, has been ripening and ripening and ripening. This April, we brought these two forces more closely together, bringing in Mama Bear, Pat McCabe, some of Mama Bear's associates into our Land Justice Futures gathering with our sisters. It was a convening of women elders, Indigenous women, movement leading Black women, and a lot of white Catholic nuns committed to land justice. What unfolded were so many truly remarkable medicinal moments, too many to share, but I'll just share one of those moments with you right now. During a conversation about mother law, Mama Bear really brought it. Here's the slide. Facing this big room full of Catholic sisters, mostly white Catholic sisters, she said, "I am here to fire God." She named how the church and the US, with the name of God and Jesus on their lips, had violently harmed her community and her family. She asked who would stand with her to return everything that was stolen and regain honor and honorable relationship. Slowly, one by one, sisters began to stand until almost the whole room was on its feet, facing Mama Bear, silently standing with her, or sitting and contemplating what would it mean to actually stand with integrity in this moment. One sister, as she stood, said, "The God you speak of is not my God. I fired that God many, many years ago." Another sister, who's been working tirelessly to integrate land justice principles into her community's plans for years, pledged her commitment by saying, "Until my last dying breath, I will work to return what was stolen." It was quite an incredible moment. And this story, for me, shows the way that Mother Law stands up in her authority for what is right, what is needed for life to flourish and for right relationship to flow. This is what we're called to learn how to do and practice together. This is what we've been asked to do by our partners, and our partners have shown us, and they keep showing us, that we can do this for each other. So this is how the Mother House Initiative, a place for us to learn and practice this commitment together, in this upcoming starter series on mother law and complicit no more, was born. Through the starter series, you're invited into the powerful medicine that's unfolding within these unlikely convenings, and help shift the culture with the authority that you carry from your own mother line, whether or not you know that lineage. So we'll talk more about that after what's coming next. But next we're going to do just a brief meditation, because you've just heard a lot, and you've heard a lot of very powerful stuff. And it's been fun reading your comments in the chat as we go. So let's just take a moment to breathe. We're going to do a little journey here just for 3 or 4 minutes. Take a moment to just get with your body, get with the earth. Take some deep breaths. I'm going to put a beautiful image on the screen here by an artist named Jess Snow. You can look at that, or you can close your eyes. Let some of what we've heard today just settle into your cells. And start with simply noticing your breath in your body. Let your attention travel into yourself. Where do you feel tight or constricted? Where do you feel expansive or hopeful, worried, challenged, joyful? Let yourself rock a little bit in your seat. Remember that the earth is holding you close with gravity. Now let your awareness drift towards the land where you are right now, and all the life around you here, under your floorboards, over your roof, all around your building. Feel the soil below. Feel the clouds or the rain or the moon over your head. Say hello to your neighbors, the ones with beaks, tails, feathers, wings, feet, claws, seeds. Call to mind their faces and take a moment to say hello. We're not alone here with these many beings who know their home with us on Earth. Now let your attention drift to those who came before you, your mother line. You may know a lot about your ancestors, or you may know nothing at all in your conscious mind. But for now, bring your awareness to their existence, the fact of their existence. The many, many life bringers connected to you by DNA or not, who brought life again and again, who nurtured life again and again, so that you could be here now, continuing. Your mother line goes all the way back to a time before we even had words or time. Invite the awareness of these unbroken chains of mothers, grandmothers, elders, nurturers, men, creators, leaders, to become alive in you, if only for a moment. Notice if there's an image that comes with it, or a word, or a sound, or a feeling. And it's okay if you feel blank, because that's also a part of seeking reconnection with your own mother line, part of the process. Take another moment here to offer a gesture or a sound of thank you, of I see you, of I love you, to the presences that you just felt, or the ones that you hope to feel. And when you're ready, you can start to bring your attention back to this beautiful gathering of over 100 people now. Welcome to those who just arrived. We apologize for the technical difficulties, and you will get a replay. And now that we're all gathered back here again with all of our beings and presences with us, sending it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Amy, for that moment of landing in our bodies and in time, and spending some time just feeling into our mother lines. Let's take a moment to just let these stories sink in. Also, thank you to everyone who's joined a little bit late. We're glad you're here. We'll be sending out recordings of the first half or 40 minutes that you missed, and apologies for the technical difficulties. We got some Mercury retrograde going on right now, so let's hear from some of you in the chat. We don't have a ton of time for this, but would just love to offer a minute to reflect on these stories that have been shared, stories about the partnerships and relationships, the moments that have led to this new initiative. So what did you hear in these stories that offers you a gift or gives you hope or corrects some falsehood? Or if you'd like to be more present with the meditation, what came up for you in the meditation? It could just be an image, a feeling, a thought, a fleeting thought. So if you want to share any of that in the chat, we'll just take a minute to gather ourselves together. Yeah, so what does hearing these stories and then connecting with your body and your own mother line, or just even attempting to bring up for you? And it's okay if your experience, was a lot of things. Could be beautiful, revealing, as Amy said, blank, or even, potentially painful. So I invite y'all to share those, and just to kind of bridge into, we're going to talk about this initiative and what this starter series is going to be like in just 1 minute. But I want to share just a note, because I was talking to Michelle Shenandoah not too long ago, and she shared something with me to include in this invitation to you all, which I'll share with you now, which is, we're putting out this invitation, and as was shared in the story, it's a bit of a response to a call. And the Haudenosaunee women still dance the dance of their celestial and earth mother, Sky Woman, who created the world. and they still dance their creation story, but they dance another dance, and they dance it with other people outside of their own nation. And it's the stomp dance, which is in the form of a call and response. And Michelle was sharing this to me kind of as a meta frame for this invitation to Mother Law and Complicit No More. You know, our partners have put out this call of what's needed, and indeed, Black and Indigenous people have been sending out the call for generations, and they've been waiting for a response. And we believe that it is our time. It's well past time, but it is time to pick that up. And so, you know, I want to share that bit from Michelle as we move into what this starter series is, what this response to the call is going to be like. So as you can already tell, this work operates far beyond the intellectual realm alone. It's going to be hopefully engaging all parts of us. We hope that, you know, it will not only support us in unlearning and relearning worldview and moving into a paradigm shift that Mother Law represents, but, you know, letting that seep into our body and our relationships, into our spirit as medicine. And, you know, we really want this series to be a deep resource of support and possibility and change in your own life and in the community work and the activism that you do. So without further ado, let's talk about this starter series. When is it happening? Well, here are the dates. You can put them in your calendar. The starter series will meet 6 times across 6 weeks. Again, this is like the foundational course for this new initiative. We will be starting the day after Labor Day and then be meeting every week on Mondays from 4 to 6 Eastern. They'll all be held online on Zoom, and there will be a much larger room that can accommodate everyone. And as for the flow of the sessions, oh, and there's an extra praxis session that's also going to be a space of really moving into commitment and action and kind of integrating that as it's been trickling up throughout the series. So I wanted to name that 7th praxis space. So what will happen in these sessions? Well, this is the part that I'm really excited to share. The reveal of our lineup, our guides and our speakers. Our first session will be, if we can move to the next slide, our first session is going to be an introduction, a much deeper introduction to Mother Law, direct from the source. We will be hearing from Clan Mother Mama Bear. We'll be hearing from Beverly Jacobs, who's an Indigenous lawyer. We'll be hearing from Michelle Shenandoah and Pat McCabe, 2 of our advisors. And in that, we'll be hearing about this call to Mother Law and what it means to be reclaiming the cultural traditions of nourishing life with the authority of the earth. We'll be receiving a teaching on the governance and wampum belts and treaties that kind of make up some of the backstory and foundation of Mother Law that come from the Haudenosaunee. After that, we'll dig deeper into the European Christian delusion of supremacy that the doctrine of discovery really represents, and the ways that it dehumanizes us all. We'll get into the context, the deeper context of those papal bulls and how are they used for the projects of, you know, genocide, enslavement, colonization of the earth, and commodification of the earth, and how they're active in today's legal and cultural and economic and political systems. And we'll really be talking, we'll be digging into that with one of our good friends and partners, Sarah Augustine, who's the co-founder of the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery. She's Tewa and an activist and author. And then our third session, we'll be moving into how does this impact our relationship with land? You know, how does this story map to the story of dispossession of communities in terms of their relationship to land? How basically the doctrine of discovery enabled the tactics of land theft legalized land theft that have given us our current status quo of private property today. And we'll be digging into also like what else does that deprive us of, given this, twisted relationship with land as is codified in U.S. property law. So we'll be talking with tribal attorney Jessica Innermill, who does deep dives into parcel by parcel land, as well as Mary Henderson of the Land Loss Prevention Network, which works with Black farmers and has for decades to retain ownership of Black farmland. After that, we'll be rounding the corner into the second half of the series. We'll be digging into the origins of European patriarchy and how those things are connected to the witch hunts, how those are connected to the subjugation of women. We'll be connecting to the grief of what was lost. We'll be talking to two experts on the rise of patriarchy and motherline cultures. That would be Max Dashu here, as well as Sarah Jelena Walcott. Pat McCabe will also be offering something for that session. And so then we'll move into our fifth course, our fifth session, which is a little bit of a change in energy. So we'll have kind of rounded the corner in terms of how did we get to where we are, and really kind of examining the poison, so to speak. And here we'll be looking at some of the medicine. So we'll be having a wonderful session focused on the foundresses and saints of Christian tradition that have really given us an example and a model for what it looks like to resist empire. And we'll be doing that with Katie Gordon of Monasteries of the Heart, who lives with the Benedictines in Erie. And after that, our last session will really begin us on the next phase of the journey to remother our theology. We'll be talking with Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas, who's a womanist theologian with special expertise on the Magnificat, which is an incredible tradition of prayer and song that follows Mary and is also carries like very much a revolutionary spirit. We might also have a surprise guest on that sixth session that really, sets us up into the work ahead as we seek to reconnect with mother lines and a mother law tradition that, really stems from our own cultural roots. So after that, we'll be kind of weaving all of this together with Michelle Shenandoah, moving into right action. What does it mean to be complicit no more? This won't be a content-heavy session, but this will be a space where basically all of the sessions where we've been talking in small groups and letting things rise to the surface in terms of what we feel called to do, how we feel called to change or act. We'll be looking at our own commitments and finding our way forward together. So that is a little bit of what we have in store for the actual sessions themselves. If you already know you don't want to miss this, you can actually start registering now. I think someone will be dropping a link in the chat, as well as on the screen. There we are. And just to say a few other things about this series, there are some other things that I just really want us to emphasize in terms of the way that we seek to be doing this learning together. So what will this feel like? As mentioned, we will have incredible access to wisdom keepers. In addition to our movement elders and the activist scholars and artist scholars and movement lawyers and all the speakers who will be joining us, we also have a theological council that will be joining us throughout the course and offering their own reflections, invitations to practice, stories, scripture that really can solidify our commitment to being complicit no more and reorienting towards mother law. Other things that will be part of this experience, a lot of art and ritual. So song, prayer, craft, altars, things that will be happening in the session that really support our spiritual and embodied experience. We will be inviting you into some unconventional and embodied activities that will kind of serve as concise homework. So things that are short, but also powerful in terms of helping us access a deeper layer of the learning. We'll be occasionally bringing in some somatics practice to bring in the body, as well as offering consistent affinity and praxis groups within the session to really help us metabolize and apply our learning into our own lives. And so one thing about the community connection piece is that we are really hoping that folks can join as small crews and groups of, 3, 4, so that we are basically able to practice this commitment, practice this learning in our everyday lives. So with that, who is this for and what are the expectations? We just want to reiterate that this is for everyone. Mother Law is for everyone, and this movement will need everyone. So this course is for all who carry the impulse to nurture life. Anyone who carries this knowing that we are out of balance and humanity is unwell and something sacred and vital has really been forgotten. So it's for everyone. That said, this course has been designed by and will be primarily hosted by white women and is guided and invited by Black and Indigenous partners and mentors in doing this work. So we are calling in white women especially, but not exclusively, to join this mandate with us. So if you feel a tug in your heart to be part of this, we want you with us. This work is for everyone. It's for the sisters who are part of our community, the focus community members. It's for members of congregations and churches. It's for organizers. It's for artists and culture workers. It's for folks who, really want to be in the liberation movement from patriarchal notions of gender. So we just want to invite you into that vision of and that reality of healing, and regardless of which of these kinds of identities you hold. So other expectations, we hope that folks can come live to most of the sessions. If you have to miss a session, you can watch the replay, or if you are unable to join Zoom for some reason, there's going to be a live stream as well. Again, the sessions are 2 hours every week for 6 weeks. We also encourage you to just be available for about 30 minutes of creative exercises every week. This will be really a chance to play and reflect. And then, of course, we are hoping folks will join us small groups. This course is designed to bring our people with us on the journey. And then lastly, we are offering this course, for free for those who cannot contribute financially. And we're excited about inviting folks into a sliding scale donation to the Mother Law Fund. So this Mother Law Fund will be used to support future gatherings of the Mother Law Collective. It'll be only used for that. And we'll send a link to folks to make your donation of whatever size is sustainable for you. So again, I think there's a registration link that's coming in soon. And with that, I'll just end on one little note, which is this is a really busy time. This is a really pivotal time. We can all feel it. Empire is collapsing and also seeking to bolster itself in lots of different means. And this feels like an antidote. At least for our team, this course feels like an antidote to that. And I just want to say, this is going to be a really rare opportunity for this group of people, this faculty of speakers, this theological council, you all to come together. And, we know that everybody's busy and there's a lot of civic engagement. And this feels like a moment to get information in a new way and to seize this opportunity for transformation. So if you can prioritize this call and response, this dance that we've been invited into and really, called into by our partners, we will be so excited to be with you on the journey. So, and we think that you'll thank yourself for a long time to come. because we really feel like this is getting at to some of the root structure of how we need to change for the change of era that we're in. So with that, we are at time, and it looks like we've got folks already signing up. Thank you to those who just registered. Please share with your people, your family, your community members, your team, the teams and crews that you're a part of. And we hope that you'll join us in 2 weeks for the start of the series.
Thanks, Sarah. We will stay on the line here and answer questions if folks want to stick around. And also, if you just want to stick around and register while we're all still online together, you're welcome to do that. We know some of you came in late. We will send you the whole recording so you can catch up on what you missed. Send it to your friends, send it to your mom, your sisters. So yeah, keep a lookout for the link, and thanks all for coming. We'll move to questions now. And
Oral questions or chatting questions?
either, I see a hand from Nan, and we can take questions in the chat as well.
Hi, this is just wonderful. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and let's maybe stop the screen share.
I don't
Yeah,
have a
let's see all
screen
these-
share.
Nan, tell us.
Hi,
what
I'm
you have.
Nan. My question is, how does a group in my community sign up? And would the mechanics of signing up and making a donation we feel comfortable giving? And then how will each person get their individual Zoom link?
I think I can answer that.
Okay.
So on the registration page, if everybody signs up and registers, there is a spot where people can say if they're a part of a group. And there you can say, you know, I'm part of this church community, or I'm part of this praxis group or affinity work or group. And we will group you all together for your breakout sessions. Or you can decide to just be on one computer and be in person together.
That's impossible. That's not possible with my community.
Well,
They can individually
yes,
get Zoom in their own home, and we
yes,
can do our work together as we decide we can do it. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's,
So-
everyone will get an individual registration link,
All right.
and we will group
Does it
people.
start with us giving you the names of every single person?
So
Or-
Nan, you're gonna have each member of your small group register individually.
Okay.
And in your registration, you'll list the members of the small group that people
All
want to
right.
be in,
All
and
right.
we'll place you together.
We've just completed Just Faith not too long ago on Indigenous people. And
This is a great follow-on to that, yes.
so we're beginning to do some active things. I don't want to take anyone else's time. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Nan. I'm so glad you did Just Faith.
Sister Mary Rachel,
Yeah.
did you have a question? You're muted right now, so we can't hear you.
I can't find a place to register on my screen.
We'll send a follow-up email that also has the link. Sometimes it's hard to do it when your Zoom is open, but we'll send you
right.
the link right after this.
Thank you.
Other questions? Sarah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I want to come, but I know I'm going to miss a session or two because I have other engagements.
That is totally fine. While, you know, we really hope that folks will be able to join most of the sessions so that their small groups won't miss them. It is totally fine for you to miss a session or two. We will be posting the replays right away, so you'll be able to watch afterwards afterwards, as well as receive an email with any of the kind of resources that were given or follow-up activities, just that way you don't miss anything. Except
Thanks,
we'll miss
Sarah.
you. We'll miss your participation.
I will be at all the sessions, actually.
Yes,
But
you
it's
will.
good to know for others. All right, we got a question from Laura. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for this extraordinary invitation and opportunity. I've been following Land Justice Future since it was Nuns and Nuns. And yeah, just very excited for this chance to be in community and deep learning and commitment. And my question is if once the group has come together, will there be chances to connect with people who are part of the sessions in a kind of affinity group sense? So one of the ways that I'm doing this work where I live is by organizing in a few different spaces, but one of them is Jewish space. So I'm really, really interested in being able to connect with other Jewish people who may be joining. And yeah, so it's a question around, I guess, affinity groups that form once everybody has registered.
Yes, we would love to support affinity groups. So one thing that you can do is you could actively recruit a few folks that you already organize with to join with you. And we'll do what we mentioned earlier, which is group you together in a small group. And if you wanted to host a larger affinity group for Jewish folks who are part of this session or the series, we would be so excited to support you in doing that. It will require people to, self-identify that their interest in something like that. But that is something we hope to support people to do, both in the session and outside of the session. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And
Is it?
I mean,
Oh, there will be a box for folks to name what are the identities that are important to you so that we can group you by affinity. So that would be a place where we would invite you and anyone else that you really want to be grouped with to name that affinity group.
that's great. That's great. And then of course, once the series is done, in some ways, those connections will begin to matter, perhaps even more in the sense that we can stay connected, perhaps, and keep working together. And I guess on a related note, I see that, the names that you listed of the Theological Council, and just a curiosity, you don't have to answer this right now, but do you already have relationships with Jewish spiritual people? I want to say rabbi, but not all, Jewish folks who would want to offer their wisdom have to be a rabbi. But again, it's a curiosity. I'm not any expectation that you're going to change your theological council, but wondering if you have some of those relationships, people who are deeply in this work. Maybe there could be an introduction or there could be some other way to connect with them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're speaking to my heart because I follow a lot of Jewish practice and that's my spiritual community, first and foremost. And so we've thought about how broad to go with the Theological Council because of the invitation that we received and the mandate we received from our partners. We did choose to kind of focus a little bit more. However, I do think that that's something that, we can take a look at what the Theological Council is looking like session to session in terms of people's availability. And we do have lots of connection to rabbis and Jewish spiritual teachers, folks that we could call up to join, if that were important to a sizable group, within the course. Brittany, anything you want to add?
Beautiful.
I'll just add that we did, like, I'm thinking of that session with Katie Gordon about women in the lineage of Christianity. And this is not a Christian like course in that we are not Christians offering Christian education in that way. And we do want this to reckon with how we as women of all lineages have been shaped by Christianity. and how that has often gotten subverted by empire, and how to untangle that. So I'll just say, I just want to name that explicitly, because there is a reckoning in this course with how Christianity has shaped our political systems, or how the empire tangle with Christianity has, and how to untangle that regardless of our faith tradition. So yeah, mostly saying that the visible
Yeah, and
yeah, there's a focus on, yeah, now I'm just repeating myself, but I hope that helped.
yeah. And I just to say, I feel really appreciative and very aligned with that. Actually, the commitment that you just described is part of why I feel like this work will be so effective. So thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Laura. Hope you're able to
Okay.
join.
I'm gonna bring on Karen, and then Nora, you're on deck.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually wondering about what kinds of sensitivities maybe we need to be aware of when it comes to making outreach to some of the nun friends that we have in different congregations. I mean, I know several in various congregations, and I just, I'm assuming that some communities would be interested and some communities not. And sometimes there would be individuals within, and I just, if there's something that you might offer by way of a sensitivity to all of that, I would really appreciate it.
Which one of us wants to take this one? Yeah, your question is a really good one. Like, how do we gauge who this is for? Given that, there's a landscape within which, people might be ready for something like this. I think part of our hope is to really support people who are ripe and ready for this conversation, and to connect them with kindred folks. And so if there are individuals in communities that you think would resonate with this call, would be coming in with a deep commitment to right relationship and to, anti-racist behaviors, then I think that it's worth sharing it with them and seeing if they're interested. I do think that, just to be clear, like, this invitation will not be for everyone, and it's probably not for folks who are gonna have a hard time or resisting certain kind of foundational ideas around, the way that capitalism works, the way that white supremacy works, the way that colonialism works. So but if they have an interest in learning about that, and like a commitment to learning about that, wonderful. They don't have to be all the way there. But if it's gonna be like, I'm gonna fight this even as a concept, then it might not be the right fit for them.
Actually, it was more of a question because I don't know how the different communities operate. I'm sure there are different ways they operate, but I want to be sensitive to whether someone who is absolutely aligned, but who also knows that there might be a lot of resistance within their community. I just wanted to have a sensitivity to how some of the congregations might work such that an individual may not have the freedom to act. I just want to understand, is there any kind of generalization that you might be able to make around how the different communities might operate in that way?
So I'll take this. You're talking about members of religious communities? Yeah. So we do have programs that focus specifically on supporting communities to enter into collective discernment about their land together. That is a separate program, and that requires like a discernment process, an application process, the buy-in from leadership, that leadership is, and that then, so that's what Land Justice Futures does in sort of a different avenue. This is a learning community, and you might be the only member of your religious community, or there might be 50 of you who are taking this experience together. It's offered as formation and learning. So the sort of, oh, we're not ready to do this together. Like this is a place where people who are ready and first and foremost feel this call to go deeper can come and do that. And it's less of sort of needing to get everybody on right away. I think oftentimes this is how organizing and change and transformation in our communities begins, is that some of us heed the call and move into formation, and then we bring others along. I hope that answers your question.
And
Thank you. And I'm gonna, I mean,
no, just to add real quick, again, you sign up as an individual, and even though you might be part of a community, that doesn't commit your community to any specific thing through the campaign. We'll be learning about how we're going to be moving into right relationship as we go. And so, but I just want to reiterate, you're not signing your community up for anything like you're going to be held accountable to this just because you're part of a learning community. So
thanks,
hope that
Karen.
helps, Karen.
Nora, hi.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this Zoom. My name's Nora. I use she, they pronouns, and I am listening in from what is called Ann Arbor, which is Anishinaabe territory, home of the Three Fires Council of the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe peoples. But my question is, you were talking about this offering is free, except for the sliding scale portions that are encouraged for, I was wondering about where those funds go to specifically. Like, is that going to be payment for the teachers for these sessions, or is it just the org in general? How does that work?
Yep, there's a separate, this is all flagged to go to a separate, like, basically holding account within Land Justice Futures that is used specifically to resource future gatherings of this mother law council of Pat and Michelle and some of the elders and folks that we spoke of, to keep meeting and convening and talking about what it is exactly that they want to be calling a larger group of women into, and to continue dreaming this into being. So,
And then do you have any clear writing about for those who may not be as educated about sliding scale and how to contribute effectively somewhere in the writing for it?
Yes.
Wonderful. Those are my only questions.
And I just want to chime in because you asked about paying our teachers. Land Justice Futures is paying all of our faculty, all of our theological council, who are contributing to this initiative. So even though the money is going towards the Mother Law Collective, rest assured that everyone who's participating in this and offering their participation and wisdom is being compensated by our organization. Thanks for that question.
Of course.
Thanks, Nora. Good to meet you.